Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. The Joyride. Teenagers have a habit of pushing the envelope of their parents' patience. Sometimes they push the boundaries of what society and the law allows too. Such was the case with young Yurgen. He had never been an unruly child, but as he moved farther into his teenage years, he had a rebellious streak that caused his parents and community leaders to shake their heads and whisper words of concern for his future. Tonight was one of those nights when Yurgen crossed the threshold of what was acceptable and what was not. The evening began with a double date between Yurgen, his best friend, and their girlfriends, who happened to be twins. They went to the movies, and because the girls had a father no one wanted to anger, the boys dropped them off at home a half hour earlier than their curfew. The father was a known tough guy with a shady past, and true hell would have been paid had those girls not arrived home on time. Yurgen was stupid, but not that stupid. At midnight, Yurgen parted ways with his pal, who dropped him off at the end of his street. He wanted to enjoy the beautiful night by walking the rest of the way home. The stars were out, and a warm breeze blew through the trees. In the moment, Yurgen reveled in being alive. Young and adventurous, he wasn't ready to call it a night, however. A big world stretched before him, and surely there was something he could do to quench his thirst for fun. He weighed his options. By this hour, most of the hangout spots were empty. The diners were closed. None of his friends were anywhere to be seen. This town is dead, thought Yurgen. He nearly gave up, but something caught his eye in the moonlight. A shiny new model just sat there for the taking. He knew he didn't have his license. He didn't even have his permit, for that matter. Yurgen knew he shouldn't, but when would he get a chance like this again? He'd have bragging rights amongst his friends, and they'd be jealous of his brave adventure. Recklessness was an admired trait in the hearts and minds of rowdy boys, and he'd be the hero of his peers. The keys were there for the taking, and he'd seen models like this in magazines. He'd longed for the opportunity to try one out, and here it was, nearly begging him to go for a ride. Just a little joyride. What could it hurt? Isn't that the question all rebellious teens ask when they do something they shouldn't do? Yurgen nervously looked around, but the street was empty. Not totally without a conscience, thoughts of what could happen flashed through his mind. He knew his mother would cry if he was caught breaking the law, and his father would... Well, he didn't want to think of what his father would do. For a second, he considered walking away. That would be easy and safe. But who was fun playing it easy and safe? Certainly not a young firebrand like Yurgen. The world was at his fingertips, and come hell or high water, he was going to make the most of his youthful energies. Tonight would be a memory maker. Checking one more time for onlookers or security cameras, Yurgen grabbed the keys and slid into the shiny little number he'd discovered. He turned the ignition and revved the motor. The exhilaration of being in control was unlike any feeling he'd had before. His body melded into his new ride, and they became one. His heart raced, and he felt giddy. He put it in gear and headed for open stretches of road to test the power of the engine. Tearing across town, he squealed its tires, spun donuts, and rejoiced in creating mayhem. He reached speeds he only dreamed of, and a few times, he nearly lost control. For 2 hours, he wallowed in unrestrained abandon. Then it happened. The crashing cascade of glass as he flipped end over end went through the front window of a local department store and then landed in a ditch, brought his night of frivolity to an abrupt end. The flashing lights of the police cruiser let him know, without a doubt, that his joyride was over. Down at the station, his parents thanked the officer for contacting them first without filing formal charges.
Do you have any idea how worried your mother was, young man?
His father towered above him, while his mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue.
Save the excuses, Yurgen. You know what you did was foolish and wrong.
Yes, Dad.
I'm grounding you for a month, and I'm calling your Uncle Jack tomorrow about the Newberry Demon Reform School.
But, Dad, your father is right. You knew better than to take possession of a human before you were legal to drive. For now, we are going home. His father's tail flicked toward the open door leading to the parking lot.
I hope you have learned your lesson.
Yurgen's own tail dropped to the ground as he lowered his head and slunk out the door behind his parents. Thank you for joining me for Into the Night, an anthology series written by Caroline Giammanco, narrated and produced by Nari, with music created by Alex Sexton. You can find our links in the description below. Into the Night is available on your favorite podcast directory, so be sure to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review, as it really does help new excursionists to find their way here. Share with any of your friends who you think would like to join us. Also, stop by and say hi sometime. We're on Twitter at Into the Night Pod or by email at itnanthology@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths take you into the night.